Yokoso! Welcome to PJL's A to Z of Japan. Today, we are at the letter C, and today's C is for comedy. It's time for some gloating. As a Brit, I am proud of my country's contribution to comedy. Be it stand-up, TV, film, or any form of media, Old Blighty has done pretty well for itself, I think. Even while living in Japan, I still try my best to keep an ear to the ground when it comes to the comedy scene back at home, keeping my DVD collection up to date with the latest stuff from Jimmy Carr, Lee Evans, Dara Ó Briain, 10 Downing Street and the like. But what about Japanese comedy? Oh boy, where do I begin? At the beginning, I suppose. Well, my first foray to Japan was something of a euphoric blur, and though I saw plenty of TV back then, back in 2007, I don't really remember that much of it. But I fast forward now to 2010, when I was in a hotel room in Narita, where I switched on the TV and I had my first taste of Japanese comedy that I could remember. Oh, it was glorious. It was sharp, a biting, dark satire of politics, and, actually, no, it wasn't really. It was a man in swimming trunks, actually, punching himself while singing and, making a fool of himself in front of a live audience. Now, this man's name is Yoshio Kojima, and he is a typical Japanese comedian. Except, interestingly, they go by the moniker of talento in Japan, which literally means, as I'm sure you've guessed, talent, which is quite telling, really. I mean, think of some of your favourite comedians. How long have they been around? A few years? Perhaps even over a decade? Now, add on to that amount of time, those maybe like an extra 5 years at least of that to him or her working the circuit as an unknown in their formative years. And then you realise that a lot of comedians that we know and love are pretty hardened, long-lasting folk. But in Japan, for a talento, their meteoric rise to fame is only matched by their equally fast fall from it. In the same way that we might bemoan the manufactured boy band who are white-hot property from one day, then nobody's clinging to scraps of fame the next, Japanese comedians are similar, and I have to say it, their acts are equally vacuous. I mean, let's return to Mr. Kojima again. Now, that act of wearing swim trunks, singing, and being generally overactive and making the people around him feel deliberately uncomfortable, well, that's his whole bit. Literally. I mean, I've seen him make other appearances since then, and all he does is run on stage, dance around stupidly in his swimming trunks and sing a weird song and generally just make people around him feel awkward. That's what he does. Oh yeah, and catchphrases. Yeah, catchphrases. Every Japanese comedian who wants their 15 minutes of fame needs to have some kind of kooky catchphrase for which they'll become known. So then, all the kids at the school repeat it the next day and, like, wearing sports clothes spreads the brand around. Of course, such hollow acts don't last, especially when there are more talent waiting in the wings with fresh new gimmicks and catchphrases. I mean, I've only been in Japan for 7 years now, and even in that relatively short time, I have seen entire acts come and go. I mean, I don't want to sound like a snob, but in the UK, an act that short-lived would be considered a fad. But in Japan, that quick turnover is seen as normal. So, what's the problem here? Well, honestly, I refuse to believe that the Japanese have no sense of humour. Oh, they absolutely do. I mean, I've met loads of brilliantly funny locals here, even to the point where I will laugh at something that they actually find pretty mundane. And amongst the mass of these flash-in-the-pan acts, there are some real gems to be found. So, where's the issue? There is, I think, 2 reasons. Now, first is the format. In the UK, and indeed many other countries, the variety TV show died out in the 80s. Now, the variety TV show was a mix of chit-chat show, music, comedy, a mishmash of all other things. Think of those charity telethons that you get now and then, but in a half-hour dose, and you get a rough idea of what a variety TV show is. But when that format splintered apart after the 80s, everything found its own space. Then you got your dedicated music shows, your chat shows, your quiz shows, and your comedy shows all separated, free to spread their wings as they each saw fit. Now, comedy leaped at that chance, and it grew into the entertainment empire that it is today. But variety is not only alive and well in Japan, it's still the preferred format here. Turn on a TV at any one time out of those dozen free-to-view channels in Japan, and I guarantee that at least 4 or 5 of them will be showing some format of variety show. Now, there's hosts, there's a live audience, there's a huge cast of guests, there's music to play, amazing and weird facts, scary stories to tell, quizzes to answer, food to taste, and, well, yeah, comedy if there's time. So, there you have it. The funnies need to play for quick and easy laughs. They just don't get the time, or, let's be frank here, network permission, to go for something more in-depth, more subtle, more targeted. In a variety TV show, it must please folks of all ages and all genders. If you spread your jokes to an audience that wide, you're invariably going to end up with a lot of physical gags and immature humour. You need something that appeals to, say, teenagers and 80-year-old grandparents, which is exactly what happens. The second reason, I think, is language. Think about it. So much of English comedy comes from wordplay, saying things in a strange way, playing with the language. But anyone who is familiar with the Japanese language will tell you that, as beautiful and interesting a language it is, it's not a language to be played with. Because of the narrow range of sounds in Japanese, practically everything you say could be an accidental pun, rendering the point of them useless in Japanese. So those turns of phrases that form the backbone of English comedy are practically non-existent in Japanese comedy. They can't. Which is another reason why so much comedy has to be physical and taken at face value. The language can't really be relied upon to carry the humour. Now, I like to think of myself as being something of a comedy connoisseur, but I'm definitely not a comedy snob. Believe me, I enjoy stupid and simple laughs as much as the next idiot. And there is some great comedy in Japan out there if you look. And I must say, the Japanese style of humour does grow on you over time, and there have been a few times where the TV here in Japan has had me roaring out loud with full-on belly laughs. So, don't be initially put off by Japanese comedy when you first see it. There are fascinating cultural reasons behind why comedy is what it is in Japan, and as with many things here, perseverance is key, and digging yields rewards, as long as you're prepared to dig really, really deep sometimes. And that's it for today's A to Z of Japan. Thank you very much for listening. The written version of this is on my Let's Japan blog, the link of which is in the description just below, along with links to my website and my Patreon if you wish to support my work. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.